Welcome to Season 2 of Producer Points. My name is Justin Gammella, and I'll be your host. I'm a producer and songwriter who's had the honor of working with some of the best in the industry. This season, we're diving even deeper into one-on-one conversations with producers, mixers, songwriters, and artists, exploring their unique journeys, creative process, and insights that shape great music. Join me for real talks, straight from the studio, where music and life intersect. This is Producer Points. For new listeners or people who have no idea what's going on here, this week's episode is a part 2 from last week's Roundtable on your favorite plugin is ruining your mix. I'm going to pick it up from the middle of that conversation. If you have not listened to part 1, I highly suggest you do. It'll give this conversation significantly more context, or don't. I don't really care. You do you. Hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. Have a good one. Okay, next plugin I want to talk about here that a lot of people, man, a lot of younger producers use it on every vocal, Fresh Air. How do we feel about that one? I personally, I hate it.
I love it and I hate it, dude. I love it when I use it and I hate it when other people use it.
I've never listen, personally to me, and I'll let someone else take over this. Whenever I put it on, maybe it's just like my taste, but whenever I throw it on there, because I've tried to use it a couple times and I'm just like, it's not for me, not my taste, not doing the thing. I know there are some people who swear by it. Scott, since you were talking about it, what do you like about it when you use it?
I think, again, like going back to what I was saying about Gullfoss, it's like when I'm getting tracks from other people and something's a little bit like subpar and I'm just like, man, this needs life. I feel like it does that thing. Obviously, it can get super piercing, super aggressive. You have to be really careful with it. And, usually if I'm using it, I'm also fixing some stuff right after it. But it can save a lifeless track.
That's right. And you're using it not only on vocals, you're using it on other applications as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I probably use it on vocals the least, but I might use it on something like an acoustic guitar if I really want like an acoustic guitar to shine in the mix. I might use it on a drum kit even, but it can be scary. Yeah. That's scary too.
Yeah. Dave, do you ever use it? I feel like you really don't.
I don't have it installed.
There you go.
Actually, that's a lie.
What a fucking loser! What a fucking loser!
No, it's definitely in there somewhere. No, but I think I don't find often a cause to use like a big shelf in a lot of, especially in high end. In low end, sometimes it's better, I think, than like a low cut kind of thing. But like what I've realized, I actually tend to prefer more for that kind of thing is like using like a high cut with like a strong resonant that like I can actually take off a lot more top end and then like focus it at, the 15K or whatever that happens to be. And
that's what I do too, yeah.
And not only do I find like that is a better result of the same thing that is trying to accomplish, but it comes with way fewer of the just, the general full tilt thing. That being said, like I'd be a liar if I said I'd never do just like a full, big bright shelf. I just don't lean on Fresh Air to do that. Like if I was going to, it might be a Spectre. It might just be Pro Q4. It might be like straight up like the audio, the fucking plug-in effects, the clip effects on Pro Tools. You know what I mean? Just like that move real quick. Like I'm a huge like audio suite guy for stuff like that now, of like I'll do it exactly on the clip of where it needs to be or something like that is like a big move. And Fresh Air just, I jokingly took off my headphones before. I have found it to be one of those like widely way too abused. And if I get a session with it on, I just turn it off and do it with something else.
Yeah.
I would generally agree with that.
Yeah. Do you have any experience with the DJ?
So I use it. I use it fairly regularly. I'm a single-digit boy, and I do not link the two. So I use the left one first or the right one. So what they are, I should preface this first with what my normal tools for this is. This is just addition of air. Adding air to signals, even ones that you think don't have high frequencies, is a massive move sometimes. And like adding it to a sub bass or something, adding a ton of air can completely change the character and quality of some of these sounds. And that's what Fresh Air kind of aims to do in my mind. And it's a very similar setup to a piece of hardware called a clariphonic by UBK over here, and I've got two of those hardware units that live in various places here, but I've not found anything inside the box. This is one of those things that adds air like analog does. And I have a couple of these. There's a silver bullet here with an analog, just top end, just complete, this guy right here, just all air. And it sounds incredible, and I can't get it to sound like that with a Pro Q. It doesn't. There's some distortion, there's some saturation that's happening. There's lots more that goes on in this in the analog world. But I feel like specifically the Clariphonic is parallel EQ at really different places. And, the highest one, I think the highest shelf filter starts at 39K. So by the time it comes down to human hearing, it's such a gentle slope, the gentlest slope almost possible. Yep. So it is incredible. And that's kind of what Fresh Air is trying to do. It's a little bit like coarse and fine, or like, starting a little bit lower in the upper mid-range, and then the knob on the right is like the super, super high. But just there's something about digital high-end that when you do crazy shit like that with a plugin like that, you go above 15, 25, you know who you are, you people out there. You know what that sounds like. There's instant eyebrows that go up, and you go, oh, yeah, and then you eat shit later, and you wonder why, everything falls apart and everything is too bright. And they're very dangerous plugins, but everybody loves the Mag EQ for this exact same thing. You can argue that the plugin is close. I don't think hardware owners would have that conversation with you, but it's a different kind of a thing. So I think that Fresh Air I use when I'm moving quickly, because I actually think Fresh Air is better than the Clariphonic plugin, which I wish was not the case. I wish I could just
I never really used that plugin. I've used your real one a couple times. I don't know what that does, but the plugin, I'm just like, it doesn't do the thing.
Plugin does not do what the hardware is doing at all. It's doing something which is fine. It's worth the money. It's great if you need something like that, but it is not. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
I also think with all of these like kind of high-end enhancer type things, like you just can't put it on a lot of elements. 1, 2, or maybe a bus if you're going to go be a little crazy with it. But you're essentially just stacking the same harmonics and the same frequencies on top of each other rather than making intentional choices. Again, to your point, DJ, making choices with intent about like, where do I want this to be boosted? Not just like high or mid.
Yeah. Do I want to have my high frequency supremacy? Do I want it to be my hi-hat, my vocals, some guitars, some snares maybe? Like, what do I want to really, You
use snares?
I mean, not really anymore.
Dave,
I'm stuck in the hey-ho days, dude. I'm doing all that stuff still,
we're
man.
back to stomp claps. Come on. I was going to say I've realized I am a moderate hypocrite in this, in that, like, just on the topic of hardware is like, for me, I tend to get that kind of like shelf style big move out of my like my Hazel rigs live on, when we're talking about like analog summing, like this is, sort of like I send everything out to a variety of like analog chains, and like my instrument bus is going through my Hazel rigs, and like they're doing a shitload of top end, which I then take off with their attenuation in like a Pultec style move. But like that's where I'm getting some of that like top end sparkle with which to work through. And then same thing with like on my mix bus, I have the Golly Gravities Rainbow, and that the fucking top end on that is ridiculous. Like it's one of those things where it's like you can add 6 dB, and it's a thing you can't do in a plugin. You know what I mean? You can add like so much top end, even at like a very audible range, and then you go, wow, it's not harsh. And then you turn it off and you go, oh my God, like that, like it feels like it wasn't there, and then I turned it off and now it's gone. I'm scared. And so like I am weary of using it in that way. But there is like, that's where I'm getting a lot of that shelf style stuff, and not through that thing. But I'd super agree with DJ on the like moving quickly. Are you doing the thing I'm in the single digits? Like fuck yeah. I'm literally going to like, at the end of this conversation, I'm going to go try it again just to be like, am I missing out on something? Cause I feel like I hated it so viscerally.
Bro, try it like Scott said. Scott was right. Scott's like, try it on guitar, try it on some of the stuff that's like that. I think that's where, especially if somebody goes, hey, we're recording acoustic guitar and I have 5 fucking seconds to set up whatever I want to do on it. I don't get to have the intentionality that I'm normally preaching about trying to have here. You just have to record it quickly. And let's say somebody's holding the SM7, the SM7B, and they go, put it up to the guitar. that ain't gonna be bright enough for me. I need to do something.
Right. Yeah,
And on the
100%.
fly, any number of those kinds of things. You could just grab an airband, find an airband, and give it a shot. Give it a shot on something that you don't think it goes on, and watch what happens.
Am I bad for using Maserati acoustic guitar for my quick acoustic guitar setting when I have to just do it?
Nope, I have seen that on Shawn Mendes sessions before. I have seen it. It's like
God.
it's out there.
I just know what it does. It's like that's like my like day one. Like this isn't even the final acoustic guitar. It's like my like I just need a quick acoustic guitar sound to get this.
Yeah.
Also,
Why don't
weirdly,
you just get a brighter mic?
Yeah. Fuck you,
but
Scott.
like in certain mic acoustic configurations, that plugin sounds fucking like magic. Like it's
Yeah,
like,
it sounds
and,
like
and
a
I-
incredible, dude.
yeah,
sometimes.
I hate it. And like I like on Miranda's setup, it's like just with whatever is particularly happening in that room on that mic through that preamp with that particular guitar, every time I like try and beat it, I'm like, I prefer it with that plugin on. Not to say that I would do that every time, but there are examples of that where it's like similar to like a CLA vocal or a Fresh Air, any of these things where it's like there are some cases where like the maximum use of it is in fact the right thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same as
That's what I
anything, dude. It's just
Maybe
like
not
knowing
the
the
maximum use
tool.
of Fresh Air, though. Like 100%.
Use it to the maximum. Always maximum.
God. Okay, I want to go on to. Go ahead, Scott. Really quick. Go ahead.
No, I won't.
Fuck you, Scott.
Fine.
All right,
That's
I
fine.
just want to go
Whoa.
on. We got two more plugins on here that I want to talk about because I feel like they'll be
All right,
fun. Next
JJP
one,
vocals.
JJP vocals. God,
Nobody
I
ever
use
talks
that.
about JJP vocals. You know?
I like it more than CLA vocals. I will actually say.
I have no idea what it sounds like.
I used it forever.
I used to use it a lot 10 years ago. 10 years ago,
It was
I
my
used it a lot.
go-to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about
Yeah.
Maserati vocals? Is that a good one?
Can we get out of the waves? Let's get out of the waves. Producer
How many
series,
more are there? We
boys.
should go through each one, I feel, and
Yeah, right.
evaluate.
Depressing. It hurts my soul.
That'll be another roundtable. We'll go through each of like the CLA, JJP. one.
I mean,
Next segment.
I will not.
You
be
know,
here
I
for that.
reject the premise of this podcast.
Oh God. Okay. Next,
The answer to the question of the podcast is whichever one you're using the most.
There you go. That's the answer. Okay, Soothe 2 or Soothe. It's funny. I'll give my little quip about this. Like, obviously, when I first got it, I was like, I don't know what this is doing. I still kind of don't really understand it, but it does a thing. And then because of oh my God, the mixture we were just talking about earlier,
John Castelli.
the pot. Yeah, Castelli. Like, Dave would make me listen to it or tell me things about it all the time. I love
that was
Castelli
your
mixes,
brand.
mind you. Yeah. But, and then he was like, oh, it's doing too much. I would get mixes and I'd turn it off and the mix is better. And then I was scared of it for a while, but now I'm back on it. What's, Dave, since I brought you up already, what's your take on Soothe 2, for like getting dangerous?
To my view, it is presently the best example we have of the plugin that is ruining. It is like massively overused. I do think it has reached like a sort of a social parody where people have maybe hopefully started to realize that. And I do think people like, I think I have experienced the same thing where it's like I had become so allergic to the idea of using it that I just wouldn't do it. And then occasionally it actually really needed to be that thing.
Yeah.
And I've sort of now come back around to like, there are certain practical applications. There are certain really musical, crazy applications. Like I watched a producer one time took this like, he's like a dude signed to Skrillex and took this like wildly too harsh synth and it just dialed the ever living shit out of Soothe, like way more than I ever would have done. Sort of DJ, you said something earlier that I loved. It was like abusing things to musical effect or something. I'm paraphrasing, but that same idea of like, when he did it, I was like, oh, that was fucking, it made a thing that I never could have made in the absence of that. And I think a few of those examples started to turn my head on it. Now I think, again, I use it more of like an audio suite fashion for like curing moments of harshness that I can't figure out another way. Or for instance, in a like, in a vocal where it's like, I don't want to make like a broad move across everything. I just want to do it on like a specific word. Like for those types of things, it exists. And I have it just like, set up on a hotkey to pop up so I can just quickly do some stuff with it. I prefer using it in that spot format to like using it broadly. And if I am going to use it broadly, I want to use it super wildly in a way that it's probably not designed to be used. Yeah, that's sort of where I've landed.
Yeah. Scott, what about you, buddy?
People don't talk about Spiff enough. That's how I feel about Soothe.
Well, Spiff is great.
Super good one.
Spiff is great.
Super
Spiff
good
is
one.
great. Soothe, I mean, look, I think it's the same as a lot of these plugins where my philosophy comes down to like, don't have too many tools and know your tools intimately well. So if Soothe is the plugin you like to tame harshness or tame transients or to DS or whatever it is that you like to use it for, cool. Stick with that. You don't need a bunch of other ones, and use it for a specific purpose. Don't just be throwing it on stuff to soothe it.
Right. It's like don't throw it on every vocal just because everyone tells you Soothe is meant to put on vocals. And I think that's
like
what a lot of
Fresh
people do.
Air and like
Right.
Fresh
Definitely
Air,
put
like
it on
CLA
every
vocals,
vocal.
don't put it on every track. As long as you put it on every track, then everything sounds nice and balanced and soothed.
Yeah.
And Soothe.
I mean, I
This is going
will
to be such a
say,
useful podcast.
I know. I think that's the point. I mean, listen, every podcast is like, well, it depends. But like with Soothe, for me, it lives on my 2-bus because I have a really fun like 60 to 80 hertz dip in my room, and it's actually a setting that I stole. I was watching Ian Kirkpatrick's one of his like live stream once, and he's like, yeah, I just have this on my 2-bus just so like make sure my subs are in check at all times. And I was like, that seems useful, especially with my room. And I kind of like looked at the settings and I stole it as best I could. And like, that's what sits on my 2-bus now. It probably doesn't end up on the final mix of anything. But it's just for like my room. It just helps me make sure I'm not, and ever since I've been using it, my mixes don't have too much sub in it. So there's that. I really love it. And I'm sure you guys do too for like side chaining. I actually used to use it like Pro MB a lot or whatever other compressors, and I've kind of gone to that. It's a little bit more specific, I guess.
I do like
DJ's
a
really got me
sidechain.
onto Q4 dynamic for that purpose, and it works great because you're able to focus it a little more narrowly, and it's just in your EQ.
Yeah,
it's
Dave, what were you gonna say?
No, I do also like it for sidechaining. The only thing I found is that it's like pursuant to running it on sort of like an oversampling because we can get into that whole fucking thing. But anyways, it is very I found it very CPU intensive to be just like running it in perpetuity on things. So it's like I've sort of moved into like a Pro Q4 like dynamic sidechain or like other tools that are doing sort of a similar function where it's just like, especially if it's just like I want it as like a pure duck for something, like.
It generally feels like overkill for that purpose for me.
Yeah. The Pro Q4, it can do that in Spectrum mode too, sidechain, right? I'm assuming it can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
So you can sidechain just assign to one band only, and then you still have all your other bands doing whatever you want.
Yeah.
Okay, just for the sake of time, I want to move on to our last plugin here. I know DJ skipped over you, but we'll do you first here. We're going to
There's
talk
going to be
about...
one more after this one. There's going to be one more after this one. Controversial one.
Okay. You save it because I was going to eventually ask everyone what I didn't bring up, so hold on to it. This one is OTT, the original overused plugin, in my opinion. DJ, what's your take on OTT?
Don't use it. I don't use it. I don't use it. I don't make music that I really want to do that to very often. And again, one of my close friends, Alex Tierheimer, Bumbacy, is maybe the best and most artistic user of OTT that I've ever seen. And he was the one that changed my mind about it at some point many years ago, where I definitely was like, oh, this is something that people use when they don't know what they're doing. But when I watch somebody use it creatively and quickly to shape sounds, it's above my head. I can't use it that way, but I've seen someone do it, so I know that it's possible. But it's not going to fix your shit. It's not going to pull you out of a hole. It's not going to make your track slap as hard as you think it will. There are other ways to do it. That being said, entire genres of music have been built on that plugin. So I don't know. Yes. It has a particular sound that people seem to fancy. The Slate version, MoTT, has a lot more functionality, is allegedly pretty close. I would argue that the very specific functionality of the OTT plugin is what makes it possible to use it in the way that some of these people are able to use it successfully. Right. So it's not something that I reach for at all. It's just a very heavy-handed tool.
Yeah. Dave, where are you at on OCT these days?
No, Ibid, exactly the same. Like, I think it's like it remains super heavy-handed. It exists sort of like in my computer exclusively for the sessions that I get that have it, you know. And then the scary thing you sort of run into from time to time, very occasionally, is like it's so dialed through that it's like difficult to like, you know, unbake the cake around it. And that's a different, you know, can of worms. Which in those cases
it's a whole
sometimes
podcast, man.
Yeah, and like for me, it's like sometimes I'll just like rip everything down to the studs then, which I generally do anyways, and just like build it all back up because I think that's the only kind of way my brain can wrap around it sometimes. Yeah, I don't know. It's like I think DJ put it well. It's like been used to massive success, and there's like I can't argue with an Ian Kirkpatrick who is many orders of magnitude more successful than me, and I love a lot of his shit.
I think he's taller too.
He's definitely taller. He's unquestionably taller.
I think so.
The last time I saw him on the wild, I was like, I'm standing eye to nipple height, and I'm not enjoying this.
He was though.
Yeah, definitely. No. Anyways, yeah, it's like like I think if you figured out a way to use it and it's doing your thing, then like cool, but it's not for me.
Yeah. Scott, what about you in more in the mix realm? Do you ever use it in mixes? Or do you get mixes that you feel like use it too much and you have to like kind of take it off?
I think the internet has kind of moved past it, and like the way that we worry about these things, like I think people sort of know now, it's like you can't just put it on stuff and it's going to sound good. And I think DJ is totally right. It's like there's some people that really know how to use it. And I think, again, it's just know your tools intimately well. If that's one of the tools that you use to hype stuff up, like know how to do it good. And then it's a great tool. But for the rest of us that would find it confusing, which I think is a lot of us, is like, it's not great if you don't know how to use it well. That said, I did put it on a mix last week, and it sounded amazing.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, it was so funny. I don't know if Scott. No, do you know Evan Scott? Not that I'm at Blair.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like Evan, when he was on the podcast last year, he's still using it. He's like, yeah, man, just at like, 5% on my mix bus. And like after that episode, I was like, all right, let me try it back out again, like see what this motherfucker is talking about. I'm like, nah, it's just not for me. But I will say there are times on specific sounds, because I do know that plugin pretty well. I used to use it a ton back in the day. And because I used it so much, I know it pretty well. And there are times that I'm like, this sound needs the OTT thing. And so I'm going to do it and like shape it. And there are times too where it's like, I'm just kind of maybe how Alex T uses it, but definitely not to the degree he does, where it's like, I'll throw it on there and I'll start playing with the knobs and seeing what it does. And kind of letting my taste tell me what to do, as opposed to, just only mess with the depth on OTT to really shape a sound and see if I can come up with something. I've come up with like really unique guitar tones like that for like super distorted guitars back in the day, just like seeing what it can do.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Again, it's I don't plan it. I don't know what I'm doing when I'm doing it. I'm just like, all right, let's just see what this does here and trust my taste.
Playing with the knobs and seeing what it does. Title of Justin's sex tape. Anyways,
well, before we move too far off, Justin, I do want to add one more thing on the Spectral plugins, things like Soothe and something like and ProQ. Something I've noticed. I'm sure I'm not the only one. What those plugins do to transients is really, we have to fucking talk about that, because if you do anti-resonant processing basically on a thick pad or something like that, or some, maybe you've recorded 100 bagpipes for some god-awful reason, and you're recognizing all this terrible stuff. I find much more success with those than I do in like a drum or percussion space where the transient really matters. As soon as you start trying to fix whatever's like, spiking, in your visualizer there, and you're just trying to pull stuff down, it really messes with the transient. It really messes with how each of those sounds hit in your session. Just pay attention to it when you're using it, and be very careful using it on anything where it's important, where the transient is important. If you got jangly acoustic guitars that are driving your song, be careful. Do enhance other things. That there might be other ways to make it sound better. But I don't hear enough people, I feel like, talk when they discuss overusing it, what that actually sounds like. Overusing those plugins to me sometimes destroys a transient, can destroy your mix.
Yeah, dude, it's so funny. Like on drums, like maybe just now, I never even like consciously thought about it, but I never use like Soothe on drums, or if I'm opening up Pro Q, it's just because it's just my normal EQ. But even on drums, I try and do very light, more wider EQ, wider Q moves on those things, because I guess I'm just like, it's especially with drums, I'm trying to focus so much more lately on like getting the sample right from the start, as opposed to like trying to shape the sample to like fit the thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I also want to back you up too, Dave, in using Soothe in particular. For me, I have to oversample. I have to. It's a different plugin when you oversample all the way up 4x, not 2x, whatever.
Yeah.
4x. Listen to it. It makes a massive difference, but it will choke your session and your computer.
Exactly.
So you have to freeze, flatten, or audio suite or something to relieve your computer of that and still get maximum benefit for what that plugin can do. Every single setting I've ever heard it on sounds better oversampled.
Or just
and
put
someone will point out how I'm wrong, but
just put your thing through a nice fat transformer and it's going to sound dope.
Yeah, that's
same thing.
Yeah. I wish there was like, because I what my solution to that is sometimes is that like I do this with the Magic Flow plugin. For those who don't know it, it's an Acoustica plugin, and I'll leave it lower while I'm working, and then like when I'm going to do the bounce, or like when I'm in that kind of like final mix stage, I'll bump them all back up again. And and that's kind of like the benefit sometimes of doing it how I do it, where it's like I have my mix bus and it's like I'm input monitoring the whole time, and then when I record it down, I'll actually turn off all the things in the mix bus, and then I can make the mix bus go like super high, and then Pro Tools doesn't choke anymore because it's like
word.
On those.
You mean the oversampling? Got it.
Yeah, the oversampling. That's what I'm talking about. I explained that very poorly. But okay, I want to talk about one of the last little segments here. Maybe if we haven't brought up, but really quickly, Scott, we're going to start with you because you were running your mouth before. What's one plugin that you think is a problem in today's industry?
This is a long pause, dog.
Yeah.
What was the one you were going to bring up?
Oh, I actually don't know that it's a problem. I want to ask you guys. We'll do that next. Next.
Well, just say we don't have too much time left. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's a plugin that's a problem. I think people are the problem.
Sure. I mean, could you say that? You could say that about drugs too. Like, what's the?
Yeah, drugs, guns. I mean, whatever you want to apply it to.
Yeah.
It is the fundamental issue of like following your ear instead of following the internet. I think. Right. It's when you're putting things on, just put them on. That's when you're going to have problems. When you're putting a thing on because you know what it's going to do and you know how to use it well, it's probably going to go great.
Yeah. Dave, what were you going to say, buddy?
I was going to say,
Auto-tune.
It's not, yes, it's definitely, anyways, that's its own thing. But I was going to say, not specifically the plugin, but the feature, Ozone's like Auto Master situation, is a super scary one is a super scary one. It's like a super scary one to me in terms of like making a shitload of choices and then just being like, and now change everything is like a wild, like when I talk about working through like the frame, it's like from my perspective, it's like, yes, like maybe there's a lot of density in terms of plugins all the way up, but very little of it changes unless it's like for gain staging purposes or to get the most out of that thing. And at least that way it's like you can make like, do I need more transient? Do I need less? All through the same frame the whole time. And, or like from like the 40% mark onward of making your thing. Doing that like, heavy-handed, giant, big mastering single plugin move at the very end of a day is wild to me. Like, it's just like, that's crazy. So
I'm going to make it
argument for no reason.
Well, yeah, it is. And like most of the time, you're not going to be better off for it. But I do think when you've been working on a record all day, especially if you're producing it and writing it and like doing the whole thing all day, I think it can be a really great sanity check to see if your frequency curve is just totally fucked,
Okay, but
if you're in the ballpark.
I was going to say, I'm going to cut you off real quick because the plugin I use for that, which is basically EQ Match, but without like all the bullshit, is Isotope's tonal balance control.
Tonal balance is fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's like that's right at the very end of the mix bus chain or on the master chain. And for me, it's like that's what I'm checking to make sure like at the end of the day my ears are dead. And I look at them like, oh my God, like my fucking mid range there's nothing there. And it's like, okay, I need to go back and fix that. You know, like and what I really love about it too is it's forced me, not forced me, but I'm trying to do the right thing. I've been buying songs again on iTunes so I can like plug it in there. To be like, okay, I think this song like kind of reminds me of like this song sonically. So let's plug that EQ profile in there and I can kind of like see where it's at, you know, compared to my record. And that's been the most, honestly, the most helpful tool for me. Again, just mostly talking about these like day 1, day 2 bounces. I think that's how I'm able to like get it to a point where I'm not listening to it 2 hours later and being like, ah, fuck, my sub is out of control. Things like that. Hey gang, I just wanted to pop in here to let you know that the best way you can help this podcast grow is to rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts. It tells the algorithm to push our show to other listeners so we can grow. And it's one of, if not the best way to help support this podcast. So if you wouldn't mind, take a second to rate this podcast. Sharing it with your friends would be amazing too. All right, back to the pod. DJ, what about you? What's like, you know, a plugin or something that you feel like people are maybe overusing?
I will maybe one thing I wanted to discuss here, because all of us are using Pro Q4, that I still think there are stragglers out there that are using zero latency and not natural phase. I think if you're putting zero latency mode fab filters all over the place, you'll just see a noticeable bump if you just switch them all over to natural phase when it's time. Unless you need zero latency while you're tracking for some reason. Otherwise, those kinds of things, it's not that you're using it wrong. I just think you're missing out. You're missing out on the way it could sound, which is just slightly different and slightly better.
For our listeners, like who might not like know what you're talking about, like what
Sure.
what are you hearing that's different about it?
It's a fidelity increase, a resolution increase. It's the difference between maybe a 5 megapixel photo and a 15 megapixel photo. It's like yes, the image is still there without it, regardless. Do you need it? No. But is it better? To my ear, almost every single time. It's a simple, easy thing. You can set it up in your DAW so that every time you open up the plugin, it's already in natural phase. If you're mostly doing production or if you're using an Apollo and doing direct monitoring that way, where latency is not a real issue, it's just a quick, easy way to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think plugins that people are using too much, I mean, I don't see it as often, I guess. You know what plugin I think people use too much? Here we go. Valhalla Vintage Verb standard 70s setting. Default setting. 70s.
Fair.
That's a good one.
I think that one, I have wanted to talk about that one for this entire discussion, I think, because I do think that ruins mixes. Not because I think
it's funny, I had that plugin on here and I was like, come on, it's a little boring. But I think you're right.
But it's not boring specifically for this, because I don't believe that everybody understands what is going on with the 70s, 80s, and now settings, even though it fucking says it at the bottom of the screen. It clearly says what's going on. But when you use more than one or two of the 70s reverb setting on a washy, long, let's say over 2 seconds or over 3 seconds, you have a couple of those sort of splashing around in your mix all over the place. What I have found that does to my overall perception of phase and overall perception of depth and motion and movement from compression is devastating when people overdo that. And so many people pull that plugin up and immediately just they don't touch the pre-delay and they don't take it off 70s mode.
Yeah, because it sounds vibey right away. It's like, that's the thing. It's like it almost.
I get the trap of the vibe.
Yeah.
The trap of the vibe is real.
Yeah.
The problem is when you make that same small decision 5, 6, 7, 10 times in your session, I think that can ruin your mix. I do think that one is pretty tough.
Yeah,
but I think you're onto a cool thread here, because part of it is like, are the default settings ruining your mix? And I think that might be the case with some of these plugins. Like a huge one to me is like the gain scale on Q4, where it's like, you don't need the gain scale to be that huge. Cut it down to 6 dB. Like use the small gain scale. Yeah. And it's just like the default setting is just a huge scale.
Yeah, and I want to move on, but I do find it funny that like I feel like ProQ is like one of the few plugins that opens up in like 0 latency mode. Most of the other ones you have to like actively turn that on. I think that's a good thing. Yeah. As opposed to like having it be default. I've always found that very peculiar. Okay, I want to go on to our listener questions here. Elijah, you had
Dave
one.
Doesn't even get to answer.
No, I went. I said Ozone. I said Ozone automatic mastering shit.
Right. Yeah, again, the default setting. You don't like the default setting. You like the plugin. But the
I'm
default
a good host.
setting.
Fuck you, Scott. Elijah.
Can I get a water in here or what, dude?
Elijah, do you remember the question you asked? I have it written down here. Do you remember what you asked on the Instagram thing the other day?
I think it was something like,
or if you have a different question, you can ask that.
Well, I have so many questions.
Okay. Let's start with one.
Yeah, so I think it was mainly like, since I know that you guys all probably have a ton of outboard gear that you like to use, like how does parallel saturation in the DAW compare to parallel compression with analog gear? Because I've heard like that there's like discrepancy, like when you're doing a ton of parallel compression in a DAW, like it doesn't come out the same as if you were doing parallel compression like with gear. Does that make sense?
100% true that it will not come out the same. That is true. But the biggest thing for me, I think, is that when you're in the analog world, you're getting saturation. Everything saturates a little bit. It's electricity. You're getting a little of that all the time. If you're trying to just, if you're trying to use parallel compression to add density to a sound, you can also add density with saturation. You 100% can do that.
Big fat transformer.
Transformer. There you go. Parallel processing in the analog world, a lot of times, I think most of the time, maybe, or all the time, is latency free. You're not dealing with phase issues in this way. Like you're much more likely to get in phase trouble in the software world, especially with routing within your DAW. If you got a plugin that has a mix knob, you're probably good to go. But there's much more danger to doing a lot of parallel processing inside the box with phase. So,
right, yeah,
hardware wins again.
Dave, you have a ton of outboard gear. What? How do you feel about it?
I think DJ touched on everything that is sort of the thing. It's like I think most like when you're talking about outboard gear, like yes, like exactly, you're getting into like electricity and some level of saturation at varying degrees. A lot of the stuff I use is tube based, so like a lot of it's like a shitload of saturation that's being imbued, even when it's just on. I have noticed just from like general meter testing and some other shit, just to see like what, because for instance, like my the Gravity's Rainbow is like it's a solid state piece of gear, and I noticed that even just like on but not doing anything, it just sort of added this level of vibe. And then I've realized like there's a slight like, and this is true of almost all analog gear, like there's going to be a slight stereo difference in terms of your signal and like how it's tracking back in. And so like some of that is just like this minuscule perception of like additional width and like
that's width. That's what width is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Width, baby. Yeah.
So
man.
it's like a lot of it is that. I don't use any of this in a parallel fashion. I don't actually. I'm not a big parallel person, generally speaking. Like sometimes I'll use like a mix knob on something for an artistic purpose, and again, usually that's like committed down. It's very rare that I just have like a full parallel signal on like a vocal running or something like that. I do have a fairly heavy-handed parallel saturation that exists in my template that it routinely goes on and off, or is like very, very low, that just sometimes adds like a little bit of like a boost in a chorus or that sort of thing, or it kind of depends from time to time, but like I would like shy away from it is my personal, if you don't know what you're doing and what you're listening for, I would say absolutely don't do it.
Elijah, you got any other questions before we go on to our last segment here?
Yeah, I don't want to
Scott,
say
you wanted
anything. No,
I'm trying to keep the time. You're going to answer the next
It's
question,
fine.
Scott.
It's fine.
Just really quick, like when you get to those points when you feel like you can't go back, maybe you're in a session where you're trying to like go outside of your comfort zone and you're doing too much and you try to like peel something back or you add something, then you're like, that just doesn't sound as good. But I know like it's causing the issue, but I don't know where it's causing the issue. Like, how do you sort of tackle that issue when you're like fighting yourself and you're like weird preferences where you like find that you really like something, but you also know that it's ruining your mix?
It's a good question. Scott, you want to take it to start like I was planning on?
Well, earlier I was talking about fresh air, and it's like I was saying, like I put it on, and sometimes I like it, but almost always there's something I then have to fix about it. So I think, unfortunately, a lot of it is just reps, like knowing the tools and when to apply them, like knowing that if I put this on, it's gonna fuck me, and it's gonna be harder to fix than it is to get the thing that I liked out of it some other way. So ideally, the answer is find things that do the thing you like and don't do the thing you don't like. But alternately find solutions to the things you don't like. And again, it's like, if you're not applying the same tricks to every element, you're probably going to be all right.
Yeah. Elijah, just to kind of clarify your question, I'm almost talking about like, oh, I did something in my production that I really like, but I know it's kind of messing up my mix, but it's an essential part of the production. And like, is that kind of what more you're talking about?
Yeah.
Or like,
It might not be a plugin. It could be like a sound or like it.
yeah.
But I feel like sometimes I make sounds specifically with a plugin and then I'll just print that sound and like sort of make it its own thing that way. But then I can't.
Yeah, brother, commit.
Go back.
Yeah, committing. Like, I
Just
think,
reps.
yeah.
You just do it a lot, mess up a lot, and then as you mess up more and more, you'll start messing up less and less.
I also do think there's. Go ahead, Justin.
No, you go.
I was going to say, I do think like what it seems to me like you're talking about is like, I agree, like commit early, commit often. Like I am a giant commit, like as soon as humanly possible. Like I fucking hate MIDI. I just like anything in that realm of like shit. I just like want it committed. And then I don't really want to think about it that much. Like if I've made the decision, I think all those things are true. Like in terms of Scott's point around just like reps, kind of maybe what you're talking about though also is like is digging down to like the emotional reason why that sound is doing the thing. So it's being like, hey, this giant bass sound that's maybe like the iconic sound of the track, but is fucking me and I can't seem to figure it out. Part of the discussion you have to have with yourself is, okay, what about this thing is the thing that I want it to be? And then maybe it's ripping it down to the studs and starting again and just keeping that in mind of like, okay, like I want this bass part to have like a bunch of heavy upper mid saturation so that it's doing something, but it's not as unruly in the low end or whatever that happens to be. Probably
I literally just said this exact thing.
Yeah. The other thing that emerges also is like maybe like twice a year I find myself in a place where like I just have to rip everything back down. You get in so deep and you go, I have made some critical decision along here that is not working out. And this doesn't happen very often. I think it happens more and more sparingly the more often you're doing stuff. Right. But there is a very occasionally a place where I just go like, I got to start again. I just like go back to the beginning. We're going to like see what happens. And that's more on like the working mix front usually than it is production. But I think the principle is the same, which is like, it ends up being like, you just need to figure out the intention of what you were trying to do and the different path around it.
Yeah. I think too, like so much of like the reps thing is also, as I've been producing for more and more time, I'm less precious about things. If it's a part that I'm like, I love this part and it like, I feel like it made the song, but then it's like, it's also the main problem. Exactly what Dave said. It's like, sometimes I have to experiment with just making that track inactive and muting it and seeing if I can do a similar thing in a different way. You know, one of the things that when Dave and I used to work a ton together is I would like kind of just make a bunch of sounds and do the thing. And then there were times when I'm like, I think Dave understood that, where it's like, okay, Justin made this bass sound and it's doing this, but it's not quite doing it the way that it should be. And Dave would just like recreate it. And it was the same part and it was essentially the same thing, but he approached it differently. And it's like, now it's sitting in the mix better. And it's a better decision for the song overall. And you never want to just like base your decision on like one sound, again, but this is the annoying thing about this podcast, but sometimes you have to do that. And sometimes it's about, and let me say that, like, if you're going to stick to that one sound, then it's maybe changing everything else around it to then you have to fit your production around that sound.
Okay.
Bass is particularly interesting because I think the bass can be really make or break. It can be really exciting when you're doing it in the room. You're like, oh my God, this bass sounds incredible when it's loud and shaking the whole room. And then you're going to mix it and it's like, oh, this is totally unmixable. Like there's nothing in the mid range and there's no way to make it cut through these other elements. And to Justin's point, maybe it is just muting all the other stuff. And then it's really cool and different and like could be a pretty nasty, unruly bass and work. But if there's a bunch of other elements, then maybe you just need to revisit that thing.
Yeah, I think, and that's what it is. Like, back in like my band days, I had that same problem where it's like, oh, I love the sound. I think this is like the thing that's going to make the song, and I had to like kind of produce around that sound. And
things were a lot easier in the 1980s, though.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just kidding. When you were
okay, we're gonna
let me tell you this though. Let me contribute. My one point to this would be to think of. Elijah, I would consider this metaphor of thinking of elements in your mix sometimes as costumes or articles of clothing, right? If you are making a track that you want to sound like it has sunglasses and a leather jacket on, metaphorically, if you're trying to make it sound tough and cool and whatever, every element inside that mix could and arguably should be contributing towards that costume goal, right? And sometimes you might have a snare drum that is close. It works, but it's not exciting or something like that. You know what I mean? Switching out that one piece of costume, that one article of clothing until it more fits the thing that you were going for. Sometimes that helps me because it's hard to throw out something that is good, but it's also hard to admit that sometimes it's not great. Right. Or it's not enough to hang the whole hat of a song on,
Or it's just not right.
That's what I mean by it might not be right in that way. Yeah, and don't be afraid to switch out these items and these things. Like just change them out as clean as you can. Just the sound itself.
Mr. Miyagi-esque.
Right.
Yeah, it's like I have to completely change the way I think about those kinds of things because sometimes we do a demo, we do a day of, we try it. We wrote the whole melody over a certain set of chords. And then at the end of the day, you sit there and you go, those chords are good, but maybe they could be better. Justin, you and I have done this as well. Dave, we've done this too. We've reharmed entire tracks, entire songs with different chords because that was a costume change that benefited the melody. And sometimes I think we just know deep down that something is not cutting the mustard exactly right. And it's like you have to be honest with yourself when you feel that. And don't try to convince yourself that it's awesome or that it's good enough. Good enough is a terrible term. But you know what I mean? Like when you're like, maybe I'll switch it out later. Or I'll do something later or whatever. Yeah. If it's a big element in your song and you're not sure about it, you need to be sure about it. That is your
it's bugging you
for
musical
spear.
It's so true because like every time I hear like a song I love or a hit song on the radio, it's so rare that I'm like, ooh, I would have done this differently. I do that with songs that I think like don't do that well, but I don't do that with like bigger songs. But also, and I think too, just
when they're
just
hits, I think they're perfect.
No, it's true. It's like for me, it's like it kind of like. Oh God, I'm going to sound really full. So I'm not going to say it. What I'm going to say too.
It's a safe space.
It is a safe space, except not. Not with you guys here. No, I was going to say is that sometimes too, like part of that journey is making 20 different versions and then realizing that the first one was right, but I had to mute this one thing in that first version. Again, like, that's sometimes the journey too, right? So, with that being said, I want to go and thank you, Elijah, for your excellent questions. Thank you for being here. I'm going to go on to our last segment here, which we call In the Bounce Folder. This is where you guys, it's like a little show and tell for producers. You can talk about a record that's coming out, a project, a new piece of gear you got, something that you're really stoked on that you want to share with the interwebs here. Scott, why don't you go first?
It doesn't matter if it's in the bounce folder or not.
Sure.
It could exist in a physical.
It could.
I ordered the Audioscape 1178, and I'm stoked. I've wanted an 1178 for a very long time.
Hell yeah.
I've shot it out against so many other compressors, so for various things, and they're not that easy to buy. They're out there, of course. They're expensive, but I trust Audioscape, as I know you guys do too, and believe in them.
Did you
as a
find
company.
a used one, or did you buy it directly from them?
I bought it from them.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
They had a nice little Memorial Day sale.
I saw that. Yeah,
It was a deal that I could not refuse.
it was too good. Dave, what about you, buddy?
Okay.
I did the same shit, bro.
Yeah.
I just started looking around being like, wait a minute, what do I want?
Yeah, I'm going to
Yeah.
go on the fastest blitz of this of all time. Audio-Technica 5040, been a huge fan. I just bought one. I've loved them for years, and I just never got one. And then I got an incredible deal on this one on Reverb, and I'm very happy with it. All the Hazelrig stuff, I still love a bunch. Records that are coming out. I have a bunch of stuff on the Smurfs thing, which is cool. Salem's album is
Dope,
coming
dude.
out.
Nice.
I mixed a bunch of those songs, which is not a good idea, but here we are. And what else? That's kind of it off the top of my head. Yeah,
I've listened to
same
a
old
lot of the Salem stuff, and it's great through Salem. Dave doesn't know I listen to it.
Oh no, you absolutely should. She actually just to big her up really quick is like she started all of this, like they're all 100% written by her. I will appear on the publishing exclusively for my production contributions, and she also started the productions on all of them and is a co-producer on each of them.
She has her own episode coming out in a couple weeks. We can talk about it.
Perfect.
Awesome.
I love
that's
her.
why she's
Okay,
on
great.
producer
so
points.
I will not abuse this anymore. So there you go.
Don't abuse it. No. We love Salem. DJ, how about you, man?
Looking around the room, I'm trying to come up with a piece of gear that I think is maybe an unsung hero, I think. And maybe the most unsung hero in my whole collection is the Louder Than Liftoff Silver Bullet.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And this thing is better than anyone tells you. That's what I'll say. This kind of a piece of gear, for those who don't know, this is a Mojo box, a tone box that you can run stereo signals through. It also has a stereo mic preamp. So it has multiple outputs on the back and multiple inputs. So if you don't have a patch bay and you don't have a shitload of gear and you want to get something that is going to make a big difference in every single thing that you record, not just on your mix bus, but on the way in as well, that box, you cannot beat for that price. And I don't know enough people that have this and use it. Scott, I know you're a fan of it as well.
Love it.
It is insane what this thing can do. It has the ability to have console saturation in the style of API, in the style of Neve. You can cascade those two things into each other in both directions, one into the other or the other into the first. There's a modular, section where you can swap out a little card inside and have a compressor or a tape emulation circuit, or there's all kinds of stuff that you can swap out there. There's a 3-band EQ, fucking dumb as dirt. It's so good. It works on every single thing. I just don't know why more people haven't explored this other than it's in a category of its own. And if you don't know why you need this, it's really hard to understand that you do. But if you have, for example, I have piano microphones on an upright piano back here. Those are constantly hooked up to the mic inputs on this unit. There's one knob that you can switch to turn it into a mic preamp, and it's ready to go. And then you want to put it back on your mix bus, you switch it back the other direction, it's right on your mix bus, ready to go again. It's so sick. I encourage people to go check it out. There's a plugin of it. It's not the same. Don't buy the goddamn plugin. Buy the hardware. You will thank me later. You will say, oh my gosh, why do people not have this thing?
The low end is crazy too.
The low end
is amazing. Yeah.
I can't say enough good things. And
you take the low end from that, the high end from that, the mid band from God Particle, magic.
There you go.
Dude, the mid band on this thing is sick too. I'm telling you, there's just there's a hardware air band on it, which is incredible. There's a vintage knob that lets you do a Pultec like thing where you can push the high frequencies down and then dime up into the air band. man, I encourage you, get one, get nerdy with it, get cool. I don't know those dudes at Louder Than Liftoff. They don't know me.
I met the one dude, and he is the nicest guy ever. He was just
Good.
like such a dope dude. Yeah,
that's what we like
That's
to hear.
amazing.
For me, I'm going to share, I just got the Garbage Ideas, the FK comp that I've heard great things about. I was able to get in touch with Jason, who works over there, and I got 2 of them, and I've been messing with it for the past couple of days, and man, it does a thing. To me, it's a compressor. It's also has like you can compress on it. You can also only drive on it, get some saturation going on there. But it's got the for when you're, how do I describe it? You can really fuck something up. And sometimes when you really fuck up a sound and push it with distortion and saturation or compression, sometimes the high end gets gross. And the high end just does not get gross. It's just oh, you can push it and it still sounds really musical and good and super usable. And I've been experimenting with it all week. It sounds great on drums, obviously, in the compression, messing with the drive on bass, on vocals. I don't know. I've just been really loving them. They're really unique sounding. They're really good sounding. And I don't know. I like supporting small companies like Garbage Ideas and Audioscape. And I'm assuming Louder Than Liftoff is also a smaller company. So I really love supporting small businesses like that. In America, is Louder Than Liftoff in America?
I could not tell you. I don't know enough about it. I want to know more because their stuff is really rad and really good.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's other great stuff too.
yeah. I feel like they were Midwest guys off the top of my head.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So,
It makes sense.
keeping it here, which is, I guess, fun. All right, guys, we're gonna. This was obviously the longest podcast we've done so far. So thank you for that.
I don't even get my question.
I didn't ask you. Oh
It's
my
fine,
God!
dude.
This is the one time I
He
fucked
said
up.
the 1178 from Audioscape. He was the
Yeah,
first one.
what are you doing? I was like, wait, no.
I was going to be the interviewer for a moment because I want to know what you guys think about. I have a wild card plugin to throw out there to get your.
Okay, go for it. We'll
so
get
maybe
one
more of
thing.
a plugin. It's maybe more of a plugin category, but let me throw this out there.
Okay.
Room correction, like sound ID, these sorts of things. Where are you guys at?
I'm out.
I'm also out.
Yeah.
Great. We love it. That might be the plugin that's ruining your mix. It's possible.
That's a good one. I don't know. The only time I've ever heard it, Scott, was in your room, and it scared the shit out of me because I don't know what was going on, and it sounds really weird. It's making big moves one way or the other. I don't know what's up. Please tune your rooms, everybody. Do your best. Stop reflections, parallel walls. Do your best to get out of trouble that way. Sometimes I think those things are
use headphones. I don't know, man.
That's what I was gonna say. It's just if you don't know, but just use headphones especially for beginner producers who might not have the money. Just headphones might be the answer. Sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, none of that stuff solves for, time domain response, right? How long the sound exists in the room is actually, one of the biggest problems, just so people understand that are listening. And then, I don't know. I do think, static moves like that sometimes can be effective. You know what I mean? Like shelving the whole, I know, Eric Valentine does that with some of his stuff where it's he has a couple of his EQs sitting and he just does hey, this whole room just needed a whatever, 2 thing at, or a half dB at 10K or whatever the fuck it is. It doesn't matter. I think some things that are static in that way that just sort of live in the monitors are helpful. When you get into this super granular, crazy EQ, that is not
in weird phase shifting shit, trying to fix the stereo image, that stuff,
man.
And then also to me, I think there's an element of glasses on, glasses off that I would always do whenever I was using that, where I'd be like, what does this sound like if I turn it off? And it never solved the problem.
That defeats the purpose, man.
Yes, if you are gonna do it, I think it's big broad moves, and it needs to live in the speakers in some capacity where you never turn it off and you never touch it and you never think about it. If it's a plugin on your mix bus that you need to turn off or bypass or whatever, I think that it can kind of get scary sauce. So
yeah, I mean, for me, that's what I was talking about earlier with that Soothe plugin preset that I have for that low end problem I have in my room, where it's that's kind of my room correction plugin, I guess. At the end of the day, it just helps me, deal with this thing that I'm renting this place.
So are you taking it off when you print your mixes? Or
nope, it's just on. It's just on the whole time.
It's
It's there.
guardrails.
I'm mixing into it at this point. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's there. And like I said, like, is it on a final mix, when whoever's mixing my track is doing it? Probably not, but it's, for my mixes, it's there. And, I haven't felt like it's been a hindrance. If anything, it's been a help for me.
This is so slightly tangential, but maybe also valuable to people, because I found this particularly valuable to me a few years back. Somebody was using an RME interface that I was working with, and he always just had like, a spectrograph, just a frequency graph on the side up all the time while he was listening to music, while he was making music. Every single time, everything that went through the speakers went across this visualizer, so you could see it all. So in aggregate, over months, if not several years, every single time, if you hear something through your speakers that you'd love and you go, wow, why does that sound so good? You can look over it and you can see the curve that's being made there. And eventually, over time, you see what is an acceptable range of curves, so that when you're way, way, way out of bounds just by glancing over at something. And so what I use is a TC Electronic Clarity. Other people use this as well. This is very good. It is not much money. It will do this thing for you. It stays up next to your screen in the line of sight all the time. And it can just help you know if you're in the right zone. It's a little like tonal balance without the clues. They don't tell you where you're supposed to be. What I'm suggesting here is you learn where you're supposed to be by listening to the music that you love. So instead of having Isotope always tell you where you're supposed to be in rap music, maybe you like your rap music fucking crazy and bass heavy. Maybe you're into that. If that's true, you can see that on a visual representation. And you can make you can make your music fit curves that look similar to that without it telling you if you're right or wrong necessarily. It'll just help you know if you're in. But yeah,
and that's where at least to defend my tonal balance control, that's where you can load in certain songs in there, because I don't love their like generic like pop curve, rock curve, rap curve.
Pretty bad.
Well, you can set up the clarity to be so that it's getting all digital output from your interface. Basically, it's just constantly getting it. They have a plugin that you can have in your DAW. I don't recommend the plugin. Set it up digitally so that you can always hear everything. Because then you were saying you buy the song and then you load it in as a reference. Right. You can definitely do that if you have Apple Music. That's lossless. You set your shit to lossless and just play back and look at your screen. Look at the visualizer and take a look at what's going on there. Yeah. Like, you can learn so much just from seeing it on a consistent screen.
But then how am I going to give labels more money that they need?
Yeah, exactly. I know.
All right.
Gotta keep those guys afloat.
With that, I'm going to end here. I want to thank you guys for donating too much of your time to the podcast, and to our listeners, to our young producers here. Thank you to our listeners for listening. If you made it this far, Elijah, thank you for hopping on here. And take care, guys, and have a good night.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to Producer Points. Your support means the world to us. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and share with fellow music enthusiasts. For an encore, check out our Spotify playlist featuring all the songs we've discussed on the show, giving you the perfect soundtrack to your creative journey. Additional audio and video editing for this episode was done by Nathan Rebello. Until next time, this is Justin Gammella.